Hi everyone, DrBiology here, and this is a short video about genetic inheritance, or how do genes produce characteristics. So let's have a think. So there are several keywords we need to think about first of all. So a gene, you would have already known that a gene controls different characteristics. Some characteristics are controlled by a single gene, so things like eye colour. However, most are controlled by several genes. And then you have alleles. Now alleles, they are two versions of every gene. So an allele can be either dominant, which we express as a capital letter, or it can be recessive, which is a small letter. So in this case, capital B is a dominant allele and a lowercase b is recessive. So if an organism has two alleles that are the same, then they're said to be homozygous. Whereas if an organism has two alleles that are different, then it's heterozygous. So in this case, you can see heterozygous pointing to the big B, little b, and homozygous to the little b, and the big B. And you'll notice dominant is capital letter, recessive is lowercase. Now, your genotype is the combination of alleles you have, and your phenotype are the characteristics that you have. Okay, so just a quick recap of some of those words, okay? Particularly though, a genotype describes the alleles present or a genetic makeup of an individual, and phenotype describes the physical appearance of an individual. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some examples of what happens when alleles cross with each other and what kind of characteristics you would get. I'm also going to talk a bit about Gregor Mendel. Now Gregor Mendel unfortunately is not fully in the spec these days, okay, but I think for an understanding of inheritance you do need to know a tiny bit about Gregor Mendel. So let's go and have a look at some examples. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples of what we call Punnett Square genetic diagrams. So let's imagine that we have the dominant allele, so big B in this case, will give you brown eyes, whereas the recessive allele will give you blue eyes. Now, in terms of the alleles, to have brown eyes then, either the person will be big B, little b, or big B, big B. To have blue eyes, they would have to have both recessive alleles. Okay, so let's have a look at two parents first of all. Okay, so I'm going to tell you that the parents both have brown eyes. Okay, so let's have a look at the first of all, so the male is going to have the following. Okay, so big B, and then I'm going to draw Punnett Square like that, very badly, and the female up here is going to be big B, little b. So what we need to do is work out what the genotypes are. So these are the genotypes, okay, and then we need to work out, well, what proportion of offspring will have blue eyes or brown eyes. So this is the way I do it. So male, so big B, female, big B, male, big B, female, little b, male, big B, female, big B, and then male, big B, female, little b. So in this case you can see that basically all of them will have brown eyes. Okay, and you can see actually that half of them will be homozygous and others will be heterozygous. Okay, so let's go on to another example. So I'll just wipe that out. So let's imagine we have a different set of parents. Okay, so in this case, actually the father has blue eyes and the mother has brown eyes. Okay, so again, we'll draw the Punnett square. So male, I'm going to make little b because they've got blue eyes, and mother is heterozygous for brown. Okay, so again, I always go with the dominant allele first. Okay, so you can see I'm just working out which one's which, and little b, little b. So in this case, the offspring, there's a 50% chance they will have brown or blue eyes. So 50% brown and 50% blue. So just to recap that, okay, so here are the blue eyes, so they're the blue, and then brown. Do I have a brown? Oh goodness me, I do. There you go. There we go. Brown eyes. So there we have a Punnett square diagram. Oops. Star-Lord. Star-Lord, this is really bad for you. So we can actually say there's a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you want to put it into ratios, okay, that would be a 1-to-1. Okay, so let's pay homage to Mendel. Okay, so he did a lot of work with pea plants, and in his pea plants he used to look at different characteristics. One of the characteristics he looked at was whether the peas can be either round, so round, or wrinkly. Okay, so that's a wrinkly pea. Okay, and he basically the gene that causes the wrinkly pea is recessive. So let's use a little r to represent that. Okay, so a wrinkly one is going to be 2 alleles there, little r, and round peas are either going to be homozygous dominant or they're going to be heterozygous dominant. Okay, so let's cross a round pea. So we've got a round pea with a wrinkly pea. Okay, so we're going to use this. Okay, now again I'm going to use Punnett squares. I just find Punnett squares so much easier than using other methods. One of the other methods is using arrows, which I really find confusing myself. Okay, so let's do the cross. So big R, little r, big R, little r, big R, little r, and big R, little r. Okay, so this shows a genetic cross, and it shows all these are the possible alleles of the offspring. And as you can see, you're predicting and explaining what will happen. And in this case, you can see that all would be round, so all would be round peas. Okay, so let's have a look at a different one, so different ratios, so that basically they will all be round. So let's imagine, okay, we take those offspring. Okay, so we're going to take both round peas, so we're going to take both the round peas, so both heterozygous dominant, okay, and we're going to cross them again in a Punnett square. Okay, so here we go. So big R, little r, big R, little r. So this case you've got a homozygous dominant, heterozygous dominant, heterozygous dominant, and you've got homozygous recessive. Okay, so in this case you can see that the cross gives you what we call a 3-to-1 ratio. So you got 1 round, 2, 3. So that is a 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, So you're producing, well, in terms of round peas, a 3-to-1 ratio of plants producing round peas to plants producing wrinkly peas. So this means there is 1 in 4, or you could say 25%, for example, chance of any new plant being a wrinkly pea. I'll put my teeth back in. Being a wrinkly pea. Okay, so there we go. So these are what we call a probability. These are probabilities. So that is not necessarily what will happen, but these are the chances of something happening. So probabilities is basically, they don't say definitely what will happen. Okay, so let's cross now. Let's cross a round pea with a wrinkly pea. Okay, so let's have a look at that one. Okay, so I'm going to go round pea with a wrinkly pea. So again, Punnett Square. And if we cross them, you can now see they're all homozygous dominant. Okay, so all the offspring are heterozygous round, so they're round peas and they're heterozygous. So there's 100%. Okay, so there we have some examples of Punnett Square diagrams to look at genetic inheritance. So I hope you found that useful. Please do subscribe to DrBiology, as I'm covering a lot more on this subject. See you soon.